Welcome to Mastering Microsoft Copilot with razorblue, empowering our customers to harness the benefits and opportunities Copilot can bring. My name is Alex, I'm your Copilot specialist for today, and the webinar will be recorded and a copy of the slide deck will be provided to everybody who joins as well. The agenda for today is going to be looking at what is Microsoft Copilot. We're also going to be looking at understanding the Copilot family, meeting your Copilots, mastering the power of prompts, and also looking at the Copilot services that razorblue can offer and some next steps as well. What I'd really like for you guys to get out of the webinar today is a couple of things. First off, I really want you to be able to easily describe what Copilot is and the benefits after today's webinar. Be able to start using Copilot in your job and also your day-to-day as well. Understand the razorblue Copilot focus services and also have a clear path on how you can learn more. But what I'd really love to do is to help you find what we call your Copilot wow moment. If you've been to any of the Microsoft Copilot training things recently, it's probably something you've heard them talk about. It's that moment where you nail your prompt and Copilot comes back with an answer that makes you go, wow, that's amazing. So the first thing I wanted to go over is what is Microsoft Copilot. I'm sure at this point in time, everybody's familiar with what Copilot is. And I'm sure you're probably a little bit fed up of listening to people talk about Copilot, especially Microsoft, but I thought it might be quite useful to kind of look a little bit as to where we are and why Copilot and AI in general has suddenly become as huge as it is today. So first, we kind of need to understand a little bit about how we got to this point. So the first recorded use of AI was actually over 60 years ago. The term was first coined in 1956 by a gentleman called John McCarthy. And then in the 1960s, the US Department of Defense actually started beginning work on training computers to mimic basic human reasoning, which is essentially AI. So today AI has kind of taken off due to things like advancements in computing power. More and more data is now being stored in the cloud. And of course, we've got companies like OpenAI with their ChatGPT products, which I'm sure we've all heard of. Now, the biggest change that things like ChatGPT has really brung is how we communicate with our computers. They can now understand our human language and context as well. So that's really the biggest change that AI has brought about. So I actually thought, you know what, for this presentation, let's use Copilot and see what it can do. So I actually asked M365 Copilot to be specific, to create me a slide explaining what Microsoft Copilot is. And this is what it created. It even wrote speaker notes for me, which is great. So let me just explain and go over the speaker notes that Copilot said would be great for this webinar. So Microsoft Copilot is a personal AI powered productivity assistant designed to help employees streamline workflows, automate mundane tasks, and provide quick access to relevant information. It can help employees respond quickly to customer demands and stay ahead of the competition. You can utilize Copilot in Windows 11, MS Edge web browser as well. It's a reliable and trustworthy tool that can help employees to build better relationships with their customers and provide them with timely and accurate information. So thank you very much, Copilot, for generating those notes. I noticed that you put trustworthy, but an example of what Copilot can do, but also what Copilot is. But really the biggest advantage Copilot can bring to us is time. So on average, Microsoft is seeing employees who are fully onboarded onto Copilot, saving roughly about 2.5 hours a week. So that's time for you to work on that new business idea you had, or to start that training course you've been pushing back week after week. We've all been in that position where our general mundane day-to-day tasks, those things we have to do, we have to put off the more exciting parts of our jobs because those still need to be done. So our time is one of our greatest resources, And with Copilot taking away those more mundane parts of our jobs, it enables your employees to use that time to work on those projects that can't always be directly correlated with a cost, but are going to allow your business to be able to innovate, grow, and thrive over time. Time, of course, does equal money. So Microsoft have a simple ROI calculator that you can use that shows the savings you'll be making in Copilot, well, or investing in Copilot, I should say, in your organization. I'm sure the majority of us are not paid by the hour, but the main point here is that the cost of a Copilot license will be more than offset by the time your employees are going to save. So now I'd like to take a little bit of a look at understanding the Copilot family, because Copilot is quickly expanding to encompass all of Microsoft's product stack, making it a little difficult to understand all the options that are available to you. So these are just a few of the growing number of Copilots Microsoft has launched or is launching soon. For example, you've got Microsoft 365 Copilot, which integrates and works within your core Microsoft applications like Word, Outlook, and PowerPoint. Or you've got the new Microsoft Security Copilot, which offers advanced threat protection, incident response, and security management capabilities. And if you're a little confused as to which Copilot or Copilots you may need for your organization, just reach out and we'll be able to help. And of course, this list is going to ever grow. The term Copilot, of course, is Microsoft specific. And whenever you hear the term Copilot, there is now a whole load of different Copilots that somebody could be referring to. So just make sure that you're aware there are lots of Copilots out there and that you understand what they're capable of. So let's take a look at the Copilots you're either thinking of investing in or can actually access already as a Microsoft organization. So if you are a Microsoft organization at your core, you'll likely have access to several Copilots already. So everyone can access the personal version of what Microsoft just call Microsoft Copilot. And all you need to be able to access that is a Microsoft ID account. The corporate version of Microsoft Copilot is available at no additional cost for people who have a Microsoft 365 E3, E5, or A5 faculty, business premium, business standard account as well. So a lot of you out there already probably have access to the corporate version of Microsoft Copilot. And if you have, really recommend starting to use that already. There's quite a big difference between the personal and the corporate version of Microsoft Copilot. The biggest difference between them is what it does with your data. So if you're using the personal version of Microsoft Copilot and you're signed in with a personal account, anything you enter into that can be used to further train the Copilot AI model, whereas the corporate version won't. So if you're using the corporate version, you may have noticed a little sticker that says protected, a little green shield. If you see that, that means any data you're entering into Microsoft Copilot can't be used to train the model. So it's a much safer way. You can be safe in the knowledge that any data you're inputting into that, any company data specifically, whether it's sensitive data or not, won't be used to train the model. And the other important difference is between Microsoft Copilot and the other Copilots is Microsoft Copilot can only access the web, not your own business data. It can look at files or websites, for example, so you could ask Microsoft Copilot to spell check a document or to use a document as an example, but it doesn't have access to all of your company data, only the web. So the Copilot most organizations are interested in, of course, is Microsoft 365 Copilot or Copilot for Microsoft 365, a couple of names floating out there. So the biggest advantage Microsoft 365 Copilot can bring is it can directly access your Microsoft applications and your company data. So unlike Microsoft Copilot, which just accesses the web, this one integrates directly into things like Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, just to name a few. So if you open up those applications, you'll see a Copilot logo, and then it can actually integrate and create content within those applications. So for example, I can ask it to generate a PowerPoint presentation, and to add services we offer as an organization. Copilot would then look through all of the documentation I have access to as a user in order to generate that PowerPoint. So you can find use cases in every part of your organization, but what you really need to do if you are looking at deploying, for example, M365 Copilot, is look at the roles in your business that generate, for example, the most content. That could be a customer facing PowerPoint or a new marketing program, or maybe the types of people in your organization who join the most team calls. Then they'd have the advantage of being able to look back and see any information on those meetings they may have missed. So there are groups in your company that would be an ideal launching point for a Copilot pilot program, for example, and who also stand to gain the most time back from a Copilot integration and implementation. So let's take a little recap. So we can all access Microsoft Copilot Personal. It can only access data on the web, and anything you input will be used to train it. Microsoft Copilot for Work can only access data on the web and will not use your data to train it. And M365 Copilot can access your company data and the web and can be accessed and interacted with your core Microsoft applications as well. I should also note, if anyone has any questions at all as we're going through this webinar, we've got time for a Q&A at the end, so just pop them into the Q&A chat and we'll be able to answer your questions near the end. And of course, the great news is, as of January this year, Copilot for M365 is now available via the NCE CSP program with no minimum order number. So prior to January, you could only purchase it via a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, and there was a minimum seat number of 300. It's also worth pointing out that there is no monthly commit or monthly pay option for M365 Copilot right now. The only option you have is to purchase the license upfront on a 12-month contract. And of course, you need to ensure that the users you're assigning the license to have a base Microsoft license in play as well. And the great thing is Microsoft recently increased that base license count. So pretty much 90% of all the Microsoft or Office licenses now count as a base license for M365 Copilot as well. Okay, so now you have a better understanding of Copilot. Let's look at the most important aspect of Copilot, which is prompting, or how to ask. So you're probably asking yourself, what is a prompt? So quite simply, a prompt is like having a conversation with Copilot, and it is the key to unlocking its full potential. Best way to look at it is think of it like having a conversation with your AI assistant at home or in the car. If you've got Alexa, Google, or Siri, you have to be really clear and concise when you ask any of those smart assistants for something. Otherwise, you just won't get the right answer. For example, you wouldn't ask Google to play music and expect it to understand you're really digging pop today. You won't get the results you want unless you ask it in the right way. So what is that right way? I'm sure the words GCSE bring a little bit of fear into the hearts of anyone who is educated in the UK, but thankfully these GCSEs are a little different. They are your pillars to perfect prompting. So first, Copilot needs to understand your goal. What do you need it to do? Are we generating a PowerPoint slide for a customer presentation, or are we looking for a new pair of running shoes? We then need context. Why do I need this? Who is the audience? Am I prepping for a meeting involving a technical team? That may change the language or the level of detail I need. Source could be a particular file, our company HR directory, or just the World Wide Web. And expectations, should this be a short and sweet response, or maybe a top 5 bullet points? What's going to be most useful for me? So follow this rule and you'll be nailing your prompts in no time. So now let's take a look at a few practical real-world examples of how we can utilize the GCSE rule in Copilot. So Copilot isn't just for work, it can be a huge time saver at home as well. So in this example here, I'm actually using the home version of Copilot. And using the GCSE rule, I'm asking Copilot for a recipe idea. So as you can see, Copilot will come back to me with some recipe ideas, but let's look at how I'm utilizing the GCSE rules. So my goal in this example is a dinner recipe that uses chicken, onions, and carrots, as that's all I've got in the fridge. My context is it's for 4 people I'm cooking for tomorrow. The source is the BBC Good Food website, as I love that site. They always have great ideas for recipes. And my expectation is that I want clear, simple instructions. So following the GCSE rule there, as you can see, typing that into the home version of Copilot, and let's see what response it comes back with. Perfect. We've now got a recipe for an easy one-pot chicken casserole. Thank you, Copilot. Okay, so let's look at another example of Copilot. In this example, I'm putting on my marketing hats. So I'm using the corporate version of Copilot, of Microsoft Copilot, I should say, in the Edge web browser. And with the Edge web browser, you can actually ask it about any content on that page that you're currently on as well. So in this example, I need to understand how razorblue can support organizations interested in deploying Microsoft Copilot for a LinkedIn post aimed at our existing customers. So my goal in this instance is how razorblue can help support Microsoft Copilot. My context is a LinkedIn post aimed at our existing customers. The source I want to keep to the razorblue website, and my expectation is top 5 points. So if I enter that into the corporate version of Copilot, it should come back to me with some really useful content for my LinkedIn post I'm building out. You may notice that Copilot does have its on or off days. Just give it a little bit of patience sometimes, but generally it will come back to you pretty quickly. So as you can see, Copilot has now come back to me with 5 great points about how razorblue can help support our partners and customers with Copilot. Okay, so let's look at how I could use Copilot in, say, a sales role. So in this example, I'm actually using Copilot for Microsoft 365 in OneNote. So in this example, the goal is agenda for a first face-to-face meeting I'm having with one of my clients. The context is our partners, razorblue sales team. That's who I'm going to be delivering this to and meeting in person. The source is initial meeting techniques. That's the information I'd really like here. And the expectation is to list it in scale of importance. So from a sales point of view, there's so many different ways that you could be utilizing Copilot. But to be honest, for me, face-to-face meeting prep is always one I struggle with. So let's see what suggestions Copilot comes back with. And the great thing is, because I'm interacting with Copilot directly in the OneNote app, it's really, really easy to take this information, put it into the OneNote I've created. And the great thing as well is that you can also go back to Copilot because it's conversational and ask it to make any changes to any of the information it's provided as well. If you're not very happy with the suggestions it's come back with, or you'd like to see it in another format, then you can simply go back and ask it. Perfect. So we now have some great advice for face-to-face meeting prep. Thank you, Copilot. And the last example I wanted to go through here, if I'm going to put my management hat on for this one, is actually using the new Microsoft Loop. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard about Microsoft Loop. It was a new one for me. I attended a Microsoft Copilot training course last week, and they spoke a lot about Loop. So I think Microsoft are really trying to get people utilizing Loop. And if you've never heard of it, Microsoft describe it as a transformative co-creation experience that brings together teams, content, and tasks across your tools and services. In layman's tools, or to me, it's a really cool planning tool with Copilot integration, which works across many Microsoft applications. So let's see how I can use Copilot in Loop. So in this example, again, using those GCSE rules, I need ideas on how we can start a pilot program for Copilot. So quite simply in this one, the goal is that I need ideas. My context is for an internal Copilot pilot program. So a bit of a mouthful there. An internal pilot program for M365 Copilot is my context. The source is online. And my expectation is I want a step-by-step plan from Copilot as well. So let's see what suggestions it comes back with. Perfect. We've now got some great suggestions on how we could look at starting an internal pilot program for M365 Copilot. And as I said, you can go back and make any changes to this. It's all conversational with Copilot. So in this example, I'm saying, look, that's perfect, but can you also add a section on, how long we should really look to run this Copilot pilot as well. So again, you can go back, make changes. If you're not happy, you can ask it to change things up or put it in a different format. It's really very, very clever in how you can easily have this kind of conversational back and forth with Copilot so you can get exactly what you want. Perfect. So for those on the call, if any of you have actually got M365 Copilot already, you've probably seen this. These are the kind of top 10 to try first from Microsoft if you do have an M365 Copilot license. So that's some really cool things that you can do that Microsoft recommend you try first off. Things like recapping a meeting, I find particularly useful. If anybody records a meeting that you missed, you can go back and Copilot will you'll be able to talk to Copilot and ask any kind of information about that meeting. Generally, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll say, hi, Copilot, was my name mentioned in this meeting? And was anything asked of me? Was there anything that I had to do? It'll go back, search through all of the information from that meeting and let me know, was I mentioned and was I given any kind of task to do off the back of that? You can also use it to summarize an email thread. When you get back from holiday and you've got that 100+ emails in your mailbox, you can ask Copilot to look through and see what emails are urgent, who's actually asked you to do something directly. Is this an email from my boss and it has to be done tomorrow? Or is this just a request where someone said, look, you don't have to come back to me straight away? Copilot will understand all of that context and be able to list in level of importance what I really need to get on first. You can also do things like summarize a document, revise content. A thing I use Copilot quite a lot for is LinkedIn posts. They're really, really great at generating the initial content. I get writer's block quite a lot whenever I'm trying to create posts like this. So LinkedIn is brilliant. Copilot is brilliant at creating that first kind of initial LinkedIn post. I'll then go in, make the changes so it sounds a lot more like it's coming from me, but it's just getting that initial kind of content down. Copilot aces. One of the additional things you get as part of an M365 Copilot license is what Microsoft call Copilot Lab. There's a lot of different things Copilot Lab can do. One of the main things I use it for is for experimenting with prompting. So it's a really great environment to go into Copilot Lab, experiment with prompting. It gives you suggestions of things that you didn't think it could do. It also keeps you updated with all the latest changes within Copilot as well. Because Copilot is such a new, exciting technology, Microsoft are constantly improving and updating it. So it's worth keeping abreast of all of those changes, because it may be that Copilot's not capable of doing something you really want it to do now, but it's probably something Microsoft have in the works, and I'm sure it will be coming down the line as well. So let's take a little look at some of the razorblue Copilot services that we can help you with as well. So speaking with a large number of organizations about their AI adoption plans, we've come to understand the kind of common challenges and concerns a lot of people are facing at the moment. So Copilot and AI tools in general cannot simply be deployed and the benefits seen instantly. They really require a lot of change management. Think of it of like the example when Microsoft Teams first came out, for example. We all had to change how we worked, going from that email type system where, the only way I could really contact a colleague was to email them, to going to something like Microsoft Teams, where suddenly I've got instant messaging and Teams meetings. It took us all a while to get used to that. And it's exactly the same with Copilot. This isn't just something that can be deployed and you can expect employees to start utilizing and getting that return on investment out of straight away. It does take training, it does take time, which is why I really encourage people to start using things like Microsoft Copilot at first, because the more we get into that habit of thinking, what, I'll ask Copilot to do that, then the more return on investment you'll eventually get with paid for services like M365 Copilot. And a term you probably hear quite a lot is something called being Copilot ready. And it's something as an organization you really need to be prepared for. So Copilot readiness mainly kind of focuses on your security and your data. So you need to ensure your users only have access to data they need and that it's also correctly labeled. Otherwise, you could be in a situation where, a new sales junior is able to access sensitive company data simply by asking Copilot because you weren't aware they had access to it. So how can we help you ensure that you are Copilot ready? So we have a service that you can utilize called the Microsoft 365 Copilot Readiness Assessment. So this is the best way to prepare your organization for M365 Copilot adoption. So how does the assessment work? So the workshop is divided into two parts. You've got understand and explore, assess and prepare. In Understand and Explore, you're introduced to AI and M365 Copilot with a live demo of the service and potential use cases that most importantly fit your business. We also help identify the main opportunity areas for an efficient and targeted usage of M365 Copilot for you as well. And then in Assess and Prepare, we help you to understand the requirements for implementing M365 Copilot, so assessing your current readiness and giving you clear, definitive goals and expectations for the implementation of those use cases for M365 Copilot. And you're also provided with a practical and actionable roadmap for discussing and implementing opportunities with Copilot as well. So if you're not maybe in a position to go for the assessment, or maybe you're part of the way through your Copilot journey, of course, there's other things we can help with as well. So above and beyond that, we can also assist with your security and compliance, training requirements, integration with other data sources. For example, you might have a lot of your data on premise or outside of your Microsoft tenancy. We can help to connect that with Copilot so you're getting the most return on investment from it. And of course, the purchasing of licenses as well. For anyone who's really keen to learn more about M365 Copilot or Copilot in general, or even if you've got a license right now, Microsoft have some really excellent free courses on MS Learn that you can do. If you're new to MS Learn or you've not set up an account before, create one using your personal email. Like all Microsoft training, you want this to follow you as an individual from company to company. The courses are generally divided into modules with a short test at the end of each. Modules are generally 30 minutes long, so just take them one step at a time. You can also advertise all over LinkedIn once you've completed them, as you get a lovely shiny badge from Microsoft as well. Perfect. So the next steps from here is start becoming a prompt master in your personal and work life. As we saw, the key to perfect prompting is following that GCSE rule. If you aim to follow that rule every time you ask Copilot for something, it'll get more natural and you'll be getting much, much better results out of Copilot and the results it comes back with. For me, when I learned about this rule, it was really a game changer. I'm sure many of you who have used Copilot have been in a situation where you've thought, you know what, that's not really what I wanted. I'm getting a bit fed up here. Why won't it do what I want it to do? That's when the GCSE rule comes into play. So follow that and you'll be getting much, much better results out of Copilot. Other recommendation, of course, is to complete those online Microsoft Copilot training courses, as they're really, really great introductions to Copilot and will give you further skills that you can utilize as well. And of course, biggest one is reach out to us to begin your Copilot journey. As I said, we understand how difficult Copilot adoption can be. There's so many options out there. It can get a little confusing as to really what's that next step we should take as an organization with our Copilot deployment. Should we even look at deploying Copilot? What are those advantages to our business? How do we get ROI? Who should we include in a pilot? Where do we go from here? So no matter where you are on that journey, reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to help. Perfect. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. As I said, we have a Q&A at the end here. So if anyone has any questions, please pop them into the Q&A on the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Otherwise, really appreciate you joining me today and hopefully I'll speak to you all soon.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. So the first one is, how do you access the corporate version of Copilot?
Great question. So the corporate version of Copilot is accessed in exactly the same way as the personal version is. The key difference is the way you log in. So if you do have one of the base licenses that comes with Microsoft Copilot, as I said, that's the majority of licenses from Business Premium up. If you go to the Microsoft website, you'll be able to see if your license does include the corporate version of Microsoft Copilot. If it does, all you need to do is ensure that you log into Copilot with your work credentials. The best way to tell if you've done that right is, as I said, you get the little protected green symbol on the Copilot. And as long as that protected green symbol is there, you know you're logged in with a corporate account and that you know all your data that you then input will not be used to train the model.
Second question, please could you recap on the licenses we have granted users business standard and business premium licenses? Do we need to allocate Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses as add-ons?
Yes, you would. So M365 Copilot is an add-on license. So once you've purchased it, you'll then need to deploy it down to the user who has the base license. So the two examples you gave there are included as base licenses. So those users will be able to have an M365 Copilot license. So once you've purchased it, there shouldn't be any issues in deploying it down to those users.
Another question, other than trusting Microsoft to not use corporate data for training models, is this written in any licensing agreements? And if so, are you able to share the relevant links where we can check the wording?
Yeah, very good question. I would hope it is, so I'm happy to have a look and to share that information with you. While I was researching for this webinar, Microsoft did state the differences between the corporate and the personal versions of Copilot, and they do state in writing your data will not be used to train the model. So more than happy to provide those links out for you to read yourself, to be sure.
Has Copilot integrated in Microsoft apps such as Word?
Yes. So as I said earlier, the big difference between Microsoft Copilot and M365 Copilot, or Copilot for Microsoft 365 as we should call it, is that integration. So Microsoft Copilot, which is the free version, or if you've got some base licenses, you get the corporate version, is just a web-based one. It's available in Windows 11. If anyone's running the latest version of Windows 11, you've probably noticed a little Copilot symbol come up. That's just Microsoft Copilot. The big difference with Microsoft 365 Copilot is that integration. So if you do have a license, you'll notice a Copilot logo within those applications directly. So that will be in Teams, that'll be in Outlook, in OneNote, in PowerPoint, in Word, in Excel, and that list is growing as well. So yeah, the key thing there really is the Copilot integrates directly into that application and you can access it and ask it to create and look at content within that application as well.
Final question, are there any differences in Copilot when used on Mac?
Good question. I don't think so, but it's not something I've actually looked at before. So yeah, we'll be happy to take that offline and get back to you. But as far as I'm aware, there's no differences with the Mac version. I think the only limitation you'll probably have is that with Copilot with Windows 11, it's kind of now directly integrated into Windows 11, whereas you won't be able to have that with Mac. But as long as you're using the Office applications, and if you're going to say Bing or just to the copilot.com website, you should be able to access Copilot as normal. But we'll double check that just to make sure there's no differences on the Mac OS system.
That is it for the questions.
Of course, if anyone has any questions that pop into your head after this webinar, please reach out to your razorblue account manager or to us directly, and we'll be more than happy to help. But thank you so much for joining me today. Look forward to seeing you all soon.